All right. It's another week, which means it's another episode of the Into Greatness podcast with Jason and Jolene. It should be blatantly obvious right now who I am.
Jason.
And who you are. Jolene.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. We're almost rolling into season 3. Isn't that wild?
Isn't that crazy? Yeah, this is the end, getting towards the tail end of, well, no, we're pretty much after this. I think we've only got like a couple episodes left of season 2.
Yeah.
And then season 3 will come out this fall.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just recently shared like my Facebook memory of you and I at my kitchen table.
I remember that talking about this.
Initially coming up with this idea.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild, like what we've done with it?
And we didn't really know each other super well then, right? Like at all. We talked a couple, three times.
Yeah.
Twice virtually, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That might have been the first time I saw you in person.
No, because we investigated your haunted house.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Ollie and I.
Yeah, my house. My humble abode.
Your humble haunted abode.
Oh my God. I still got ice, guys.
But yeah, that was like one of the few times that we had met. We didn't really know each other that well. And then you look now, like 2 years later.
But we've gotten to know each other through these episodes.
Oh, huge.
So for anybody who like listens to us, I show up at Jason's. We talk for maybe 6-7 minutes. Yep. We press record. And then when we're done, we press stop. I collect my belongings and I say, see you next week. We really don't visit. Like we don't talk so much out of that. So most of what we've built here is like through what literally jumps out of our mouths in these sessions. It's really cool.
It is. I mean, the Christmas episodes are more of a hangout, but totally. We cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people appreciate like how well we can get along and how well our ideas and our conversation flows here. And like, again, I chalk that up to our charts and it just works. Like it's not something that was built for 10 years or whatever. And now we come together and like, oh, of course we can have good conversation here. Yeah. It literally came out of nowhere. And it's so validating because I remember wanting to start a podcast and then I went through the entire planning stage and it just pressed pause. And again, I was not meant to do it on my own, right? Like the universe just aligns in the coolest ways.
Well, and you can't do a show like this on there's some podcasts where it's just the one dude talking, right? God, you could not do a show like this that way at all.
This is the funnest and it makes it the most enjoyable and so rich and it hits all the listeners we want to hit. Like, I want to get to the guys who are sitting in the shops right now or, in their offices or they're working out and they're, playing it in their ear. I want the guys, up at the mine to be sharing this with the other truck drivers, being like, hey, listen, like these are cool podcasts. You should check them out. Right. Yeah. And then I want the ladies who are like sharing with their friends or their parents or whatever. Right. We're trying to cover everybody off here. Yeah, right? We really are. I fucking hope we are, guys.
Part of that is through the profanity.
Yeah, so
the average person.
And just who we are, because we're funny too. I make myself laugh out loud in this when I re-listen. I laugh at you. I laugh at me. Same. And I'll message Jason after I've listened to an episode. I'm like, that was hilarious. Or like, oh my God, that was so funny. Because I forget that we've had those moments.
Oh, same.
Like, I was listening to the one episode about control and you were talking about when you fell on the trail.
Oh, right. The running. Yeah.
And I was so genuinely like laughing in the recording of it, but I was laughing just as hard listening to it again. Like it was so funny. Like I got a case of the giggles laughing to it. And then I thought to myself, do you guys get a case of the giggles laughing? Like I hope you do, because I certainly do. And it feels good. Sometimes we just need a good laugh, right?
Well, and let us know if you do or don't.
Yeah.
Well, actually, just let us know if you do. We don't care if you don't.
Go back to the apathy episode. We don't give a fuck.
We don't give a fuck. Or the honey badgers of mental health. Okay. This week, we are talking about, and we've talked a lot about the issues that you would go see, say, a therapist about. I mean, this is what Jolene does.
The rapist for 200 drunk. Right. That's therapist, and that, Connery.
I'll take anal bum covers for 1,000, Trebek. That's album covers, Connor. Oh, I just love those. Oh, my God. He is.
Oh, we digress. Okay.
Anyways, yeah.
My favorite skit, for sure.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. All of them. That very last one, too, when the real Alex Trebek came out. Because it's when, what's his name, was leaving. And so the guy that plays Connery came up and was like, feel like him in a box of Raisin Bran standing between 2 scoops of fruit. Oh, fuck.
Oh, my God. Okay. So where do we go? Like, where do we go? So just like if you were getting, renovations done or you needed to call a repair person, who you call depends on what needs to be done. You're not going to call an electrician to do a plumbing job if you've got a water leak, right? You're not going to call a carpenter maybe not, to do your roof or your landscaping. You know, we have like a jack of all trades, and like I love handymen. They're amazing for that stuff because they just have broad knowledge of a lot of things. But then there's specialists in their areas. So when we're looking at life and wellness, where do we go to have like a holistic approach, and how do we know who to go to? That's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
What we're talking. Yeah, because as quite often happens in Hollywood, they'll give you the wrong impression about things. Usually because they're just trying to make it easy for people to understand, not have to explain a bunch.
Yeah.
So someone needs help mentally in a movie or a TV show, they go see a psychiatrist. But in reality, or at least in Canada, you don't go to a psychiatrist. I found this out the hard way. For your mental health problems, unless you want the drugs.
Yeah.
Because they're not trained to like fix your brain.
Yeah.
Except with drugs.
I mean, they are, but that's not their specialty.
No.
So they are at the top 1% of medical professionals that we can access. And what they are accessed for is medication prescribing. Because therapists can't prescribe medications. GPs don't want to prescribe medications if they need a specialized approach. So you go to that specialist in the area. So if you're going to go to a psychiatrist, like when I worked in the traditional mental health realm, the psychiatrist was for medication prescribing, right? They are going to understand the whole story of the person so they can make a proper assessment, and then they can assess whether the medications are working, need to be adjusted. But for the most part, as a case manager, which was, you know, like a life organizer essentially, or then like a counselor, that's where the actual like psychoanalytic kind of work happens. That's where the actual working through the daily goings on and those sorts of things. You also have psychologists and sometimes psychiatrists, which are medical doctors. They literally are MDs, and then they take a specialization in psychiatry, just like somebody might in oncology. But they all have the basis of a medical doctor training first. They go to med school.
Okay, yeah, right? And I'll do all the years of med school before specializing.
They go to med school. So then you have a psychologist who is somebody who specializes in psychology. So people always tell me like, oh, I want to be a counselor. I'm going to go do my major in psych. And I'm like, well, you ain't going to get hired as a counselor because most people in the counseling field are either social workers or registered clinical counselors. That again, that is a master's you get when you already have a bachelor's of, you know, social work, nursing, maybe a bachelor's of psychology, but you're not going to have a lot of practical experience if you have psychology. It really doesn't get you much in a hands-on helping field. Psychologists are often there for psychometric testing. So if you need cognitive testing done, they are the ones running a lot of those tests and doing what we call like psychosocial assessments. So they will do massive assessments on the entire life of somebody. So when I worked at forensics, they would go through a whole life story of someone and kind of pan that out. But they're not actually doing therapy necessarily, right? They're not doing the counseling. That again would fall to the social workers on the teams. That falls to the psych nurses on the team who also have some ability to deliver medications like injections to clients and things like that, or just not prescribe the medications, but actually give them out, right? So looking at all these different places. So Jay, like you said, you went to a psychiatrist and then realized, well, that I'm not here for medication. That's
not the route that I went. And I thought I'd made that abundantly clear when I checked. you know what I mean? So it was really interesting because they recommended, this is way back. So the first time I had gone to see a couple counselors, like just one-offs.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I really need to do something about this. So I went, you know the building where One South is?
Yeah.
I went there.
Yeah, you were in the alumni tower on the second floor. Yeah, so that was counseling. That's typically back in probably when you're talking about. That's where our counselors
late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah. So I went into there, and it kind of explained, I think, what I wanted. And I think I was on a waiting list to go see this guy named Renz Crema.
Yeah, he was one of our old counselors.
He was he died of a heart attack.
Yeah, which was very sad. Man.
He was a really great guy. And you know what was weird? This is what's fucked up. My father died of a heart attack on September 24th, 1991. Mm-hmm. Renz died of a heart attack on September 24th, I think 2001 or 2 or something like that.
That's Kevin's birthday.
Isn't that weird?
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anyways, but it was just fucked up because like this good man who'd really helped me a lot on this path died of the same thing. I felt like someone was after me.
No, that was your because he could have mimicked a bit of a male role model for you, and there could have been a positive transference issue that happened in that relationship where he became almost a pseudo dad for you.
In a bit,
in terms of some of that healing. Like I can be that for people in like a positive female, like especially guys who have had negative relationships. Yep. I might be the first female they have a positive experience communicating with, sharing feelings, any of those things, right? So that's like a positive experience of transference.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then, boom, you went through the abandonment wound again.
Yes.
And it activated that. Wow.
It was messed up. And then it was it was 2001. So about 17 years later, that's when I went and started talking to Alicia.
Yeah.
But anyway, so while waiting to get in to see Renz, it was funny now that we did the Sean Connery thing, this guy who looked like Sean Connery who ran these group sessions.
Yeah.
And I'm like going and expect, cool, I'm going to do group therapy. This is going to be really cool. And all he did was prescribe medicine to people, like these drugs. And I'm just like, that's not... And even then I knew that I didn't want to just Band-Aid it.
Yeah.
I wanted to get to the root of what was going on.
And you're an intellectual. You wanted to get...
I want to get to work, man. I want to know. Don't just give me this pill.
Yeah.
Because I've only done a pill thing once and I hated it. It was awful.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. But that guy looked like Sean Connery.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, this will be cool. And it's like, this isn't what I want.
Yeah. So looking at those things, and often like when we are going for help, we don't know. And I use the car analogy all the time on this stuff because my dad was the one that did all our mechanic stuff. And I remember how stressed my mom would get after he died anytime something happened with the vehicles, because you'd go into a shop and sometimes you couldn't always trust that they weren't taking you, right? And all of a sudden these big bills would come out and, you need to change this, you need this replaced. I can't even go under the hood and see if you replace the damn thing, right? Exactly. So, looking at that, so you're walking in very vulnerable, expecting all these specialists to direct you where you need to go. And we kind of just like follow suit like a cattle drive, right? Like go through the little fence till you get branded, right?
Yeah.
So, again, all the analogies, I'm sorry, guys. Hope it makes sense. But really looking at that and going like, okay, what if I could take a bit more control and pick and choose where I go now, right? So, again, I tell people, whenever people are looking for counselors and stuff, I'm like, you want to find a good fit, but you also want to know what approach that person uses, right? Like I am not a fan of any kind of like verbal talk therapy when I know how well things like EMDR work, somatic based therapies, any kind of things like internal family systems, and any of these approaches that are really looking at the entire experience of a human being. I see just how much more rapidly things and more self-sustained changes can be. So those are the things I tell people to look for, right? Look for the approach, right? Just like when people are like, who's a good tattoo artist? I'm like, it depends on what you want.
Right.
Right? I want flowers and stuff. Well, don't go to this person. They have a heavy
skulls
hand.
And shit, right?
They have a heavy hand. They do more shadow work. Like you want someone with a more delicate approach. Like just because they're a good tattoo artist in their area doesn't mean that's what you're looking for. So I really encourage people to be picky about some of those things and educate themselves or ask someone in the field. I love when people ask me for referral information. I am happy to direct them and give them all that info because I would hope the same. If I went to a handyman and said, I need this fixed, where should I go? Yeah. Right? So other things that we look at is, how, like nutritionally, I know a lot of people that start to go to naturopaths and they start addressing their physical health in certain ways. Acupuncture, I cross-refer to acupuncture all the time. I have seen the benefits myself. I see the interweave of Eastern philosophy with Western medicine, and I just think that they are beautifully, like if we can weave those together. Oh yes. Oh man, our bodies, our soul, our spirit, they need these things, right? Because the Western approach is like a small piece of the pie. It is so limited in what it can actually address for us. Whereas those philosophies are looking at the root cause of the issue, not just the symptom management. Yes, you may need a medication for the symptom, right? I have a headache. I'm going to take a Tylenol because I don't want to feel this. But what was the root of my headache? Is it muscle tension? Because then I'm going to massage or acupuncture. Is it dehydration? Is it dehydration? Right? Is it stress? Is it hormonal? I recognize all these different things because headaches are actually a big thing in my life. So those are all different pieces, right? But it's about learning to ask the right questions, learning to then even have a voice in some of those aspects too. Don't place all of your trust in somebody else's expertise.
Big time. And that's where I think the fit really comes in. Like, I had to go see a few different counselors before the one that I've been working with now for a number of years, because that's a really important part. It might not even be what they're sort of specialized in, but just how they talk to you and relate to you. Like I had a friend of mine, she went to a counselor. Her and her husband went to the same counselor, and he really liked her, but my friend did not, just in the way that the woman talked down to her all the time, right? You've got to, if you're not going to get success and you're not going to open up like you need to when talking to counselors, if you don't trust the person or you're not getting along with them or you don't like the way they address you or anything like that, it's a comfort thing.
And I often tell people, I'm glad that stuff happens, because usually what it's showing us is where we need to do our work, right? So I've had people come to me and they're like, oh my God, Jolene, I have been in counseling, like I shit you not, for 20 years. And I have never had the change I have right now. And then they kind of put me on a throne and I remind them, timing is everything in our lives.
Yeah.
And I said, if you were to look at your journey, who you had at those times was matched with what you could handle. You couldn't handle me 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You weren't ready for the kind of work we're doing right now, and nor did you need to be. This is your journey, and trust that where you are at your journey is where you need to be. And if that's with a wrong match, there is still something that's happening in that point. Did that teach you to learn how to speak up? Or, did you realize like, man, I can stay in a place a long time, even if it doesn't feel right? Like, whoa, right? Like, what did we learn about ourselves through that process? And yes, it's discouraging, but there was also this piece of like, honestly, like I remember for this one person, there was a very core cognition in there that we worked on in terms of like, what is the detriment of me getting better?
Oh yeah, because
why am I committed? Yeah. Why am I committed to staying unwell? It gets me more attention in terms of like when my needs are starving, I have somebody there feeding them.
Big time.
What happens? Like people are so afraid to terminate services, right? So I purposely work on those things when I'm working with people in therapy, because most of the time we're all afraid to let go of the things that are working for us.
Big time.
Right?
It's hard.
Yeah.
Because you said that, because in a way, well, everything ends, but when it's something that is feeling good and helpful, you don't want it to stop.
And we often have maintenance phase and things too, but I always tell people like, you will come back to the top of my list when you're ready, but like, just go. Don't rebook for now. Go and see how things feel. Come back when you need to. And they do, right? It's like a little dentist appointment every 6 months.
Yeah.
And they'll come back for a little touch up. We jump back in and then they're off, right? And I just think when we get really good at resourcing ourselves and listening to what we need and taking care of what we need less of that, right? But sometimes we place so much of our change on somebody else creating it, right? So that's why I always want to like remind people like, you know what you need before you even come to me. I don't need to tell you what you need. You know what you need. I will help guide you there, and I will give you really great tools to get there, and I will help you dig the hole or get through whatever you need to get through. But essentially, we all know what we need for ourselves. Whether we haven't admitted it is another story, right?
Yeah, or it's there, but we're not quite aware. It's there, but you're not quite grasping it fully.
But we do not need somebody else telling us what to do. Like, those are not the sustainable changes, right? We need nudges in those directions. You guys listening to these podcasts are your nudges in those directions, right? Go back to the victimization episode. Where did you get nudged to address some of that stuff, right? And then where does that kind of timber? So, looking at the different professionals in life and when you've been mismatched, it's like going to a specialist at a doctor. You're not going to go to an eye doctor for like a toe fungus.
No.
Right?
Or a cancer specialist for a sore tooth.
But not a lot of people will explain some of these things. And I actually wonder, as I'm saying this right now, whether this is to do with the stigma of mental health. Like, do people think like because you need mental health support that you don't need to understand what that system looks like? Like, it's a very mysterious system. I also feel like maybe the cancer system is like that too, right? And they just pass you to the next, to the next, to the next. And they don't. I've heard a lot of stories where people aren't really explained things.
I think, definitely. I think mental health, partly because of the stigma that it was on it for so long. I think it's one of those, you're going to see, you want to be very quiet about this. Like, okay, just go talk to that person
over there. Right?
Or addiction,
like, again, mental health and addictions kind of roll hand in hand here nowadays.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that was another thing that happened in our systems back when I was working with the government is they were two different systems and then they merged them because they were co-occurring so often and you couldn't send one person to detox, whether with psychosis. Oh no, they need to go to One South because they have psychosis. So then they just merged the systems and there was a lot of like there was a lot of opposition between that too, because some of those counselors got brought over and they didn't like the counsel. You know, like it was a very, very interesting merge. I came in right when the systems were doing that. So I didn't have any of the back history. I only knew what it was like integrated, but I knew who the bitter people were when they got brought over.
Oh, I'm sure, right? Because there's people who do not like that change or integration or any of that.
Yeah, totally. And a lot of the addictions field had a lot of self-taught, right? So people who had been in addiction themselves and, you know, almost like the AA type community, right? And maybe they were less academic than folks that were in the mental health stream helping. So it was very interesting to watch even the discrimination occur in some of those realms too, right?
Which is too bad, because I think there's a lot. I saw this even in when I did employment counseling, because there's people going into who had done a job for 25 years, but had never had the education because you didn't need it then. And now they're being told to do this education. And they're like 60-year-old men with 5 more years left.
Yeah. Well,
right? And it's just, so I can understand where there is a...
For sure.
Right? And there needs to be kind of an acceptance that practical experience means a lot.
Yeah, and this happened a lot in like the trades field, right? Like my parents didn't graduate. My dad like just went straight into the working field, right? And he didn't have tickets in anything, but he was a welder, he was a vehicle painter, he was a carpenter, he was an electrician, he was a plumber. He did everything.
Yeah, because he could. He learned how to do it all.
Yeah, but he never had a piece of Red Seal. Like he never did an ounce of schooling in that. He was all self-taught, and he like was so talented. But that in a unionized job doesn't help,
doesn't
right?
mean jack, unfortunately.
Yeah. So kind of looking at some of those pieces, what was I just going to say about, I completely drew a blank there.
It happens.
Yeah.
I know.
Not very often here,
Not very often here, though. No. One thing, too, because we're kind of talking about if you're looking for help kind of thing. My wife has a friend, who I'm not going to name, who has a plethora of things that need to be worked on. Mm-hmm. She has been to, I think, almost every therapist in town.
Send her my way.
And they all suck, according to her. Even the one who I go to is like, no, she's no good, didn't help me at all. And it's like, so I think.
Why are you committed to staying unwell?
Exactly.
Why are you committed? What is the benefit of staying where you are? Fear of failure, fear of success.
And if then you are committed to staying where you are, why do you keep then looking for help? Unless you just want the attention of that person. Then you can come back and just sort of say, oh, here's another one that couldn't fix me, right? It's crazy. So if you are really serious about getting help, you will find the right person and they will help you.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And, you know, looking at the different ways that you can participate in your care, you know, I used to tell young adults when I worked with them, I was like, I will work hard with you, but I will never work harder than you.
Yeah.
Like I just, at that point, we're like, no, I will match your effort. And again, recognizing when some people need a bit more of that.
Or a push, a little nudge in the right direction, right?
For sure, right? But yeah, with someone like that, I would absolutely, and I know because these ones will come to me and they're like, oh, everybody I've seen, and they come in very bravado and very guarded, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I got one of these again. Okay, here we go, right? Because it's so triggering. I remember my younger self, like, oh yeah, you have to work through a lot because they're going to challenge everything, and like the underhanded insults. I had a couple of clients over the last 5 years where that was like their classic, and it was just like, oh, you'd cringe and be like, okay, just breathe. This is just highlighting their lack of trust in the world around them, or this or that, right? And this is what they do to provoke the people around them to then push them away to feed this nobody cares about me, or, you know, all of that kind of stuff, right? So it's very interesting to dance through some of those, but I only have a select few on my caseload because it is exhausting.
I could see it would be
fucking burnout, right? And I'm at the point now in my private practice where I get to choose my clients. I don't need clients like that. I am not, nobody's handpicking them and putting them on my caseload, right? So I can happily move them on if I don't have capacity for them or just don't want to work with them. This is all choice for me. And that is one of the biggest life satisfaction pieces I have in my job now, right? Whereas before with the government, my caseload was given to me.
Yeah.
So think about the kind of worker that you're getting, right? If they're forced to work with you and they don't have a say, or if they're truly choosing their caseload based on where their best work is done.
Oh, for
right?
sure.
Like
it would be hardcore burnout if it's here. These are who you're working with.
But
and you
just
have no
the
choice.
relationship in general is more harmonious.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. But some people really thrive on feeling that resistance in the relationship, creating discord. They will often mimic in that environment, right? So it's those are interesting ones to dance through for sure. I definitely I'm not afraid of them, but they take a lot of work.
It would. I had in employment counseling clients that were like, this was the 84th time they've come through looking for work.
Oh, for sure. And I'm a straight shooter. I'm not afraid to point those things out, and I do it very non-judgmentally, but I let them know,
Yeah.
And then I usually within a week they're coming back and remarkably shifted in their perspective. And I think we all need some of those harder nudges. And I think sometimes we're really afraid to say the hard things, right?
Well, yeah, especially, I don't know if it's because we're in Canada, but we're polite and we don't like to make people uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
And we have our own wounds, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to put this boundary up or point out to my friends that they are fucking whiny pants because I don't want them to not be my friend. Okay,
that's always a big one for a lot of people, right?
For sure, right? Yeah, and even like I said, for some of my clients, like I look at them and I'm like, I'm not sure what your expectation of life is here, but this is life. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, are you here because you think that part's going to be easier and you're not going to have that meltdown? Because I can't promise you that.
No.
Like, you're supposed to have those.
And you're supposed to learn how to deal with them.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's on you.
And then come back and be like, yeah, that happened, but that's not my highlight of the last 8 days that I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
Right? And how to rewrite stories and pick different things out of them and experience it differently, right?
And change your kind of focus, how you see things,
yeah.
right? And I think a good counselor will help you do that. Because a lot of it is in the end, how we perceive things. That's
what I was going to talk about when I drew my blank is the idea of like life coaches. So they have much less education.
Life coaching.
But they have a very valuable time and place. And I'm also thinking about like TikTok and Instagram culture around people who are self-proclaimed healers, helpers. We get a lot of this in that spiritual realm. And there are people who have really amazing information, right? Like I think of Mark Groves, he comes to mind. And, he talks a lot about boundaries and relationships and this and that. I'm not sure what Mark's education is. Part of me, I think he's like a life coach. He has really great content. I would 100% back it up. People like that, I think their work speaks for them and they do incredible work.
David Goggins is another one.
Totally,
right?
Yes. But there are also people out there who are not necessarily in that place of giving accurate kind of feedback, and we have to pick and choose, I guess, where we're going to receive the services and support, right? So we might be able to go to somebody's dad to get the tires changed, and he might be, I don't know, like he might be a banker and he knows how to do that. Great, right? But are you going to go for an actual like transmission service?
No.
Probably not. So some people can do oil changes in their driveway, right?
Yep.
Other people can't. So just remembering where you're going for what, right? Because a lot of people will think, oh, my page, for example, I follow your page, so that's close enough to therapy. Well, no, not really.
Not really.
Not really, right? So it's like watching the game, but not being in the game, right? So it's perfect. It gives you an idea, but it doesn't mean you're actually doing it, right? And some people have made big life changes simply by following me, and they've reached out, and I love that, right? And then it encouraged them to go see a counselor. It encouraged them to do some of those things and create that change. So we always want to be the catalyst of change here, right? So recognizing where am I going, and is that going to get me the outcome that I'm looking for, right?
Well, that's one of the reasons, when I was asked to do this show, someone said, you really need to do a mental health podcast because you post about your mental health struggles and everything online. It was like, I wasn't comfortable just doing a show because I'm not really qualified to talk about it, other than my own personal experiences. And that's why I was like, I'll talk to Jolene because I could work with her, and she's got the professional background to things that we needed
somebody fucked up to talk about,
right?
So
which is me.
Perfect.
It's perfect. But that's the thing. To do that for me, just to sit here and talk about mental health and how you could deal with it, didn't feel right for me to just to do that because I'm not qualified to give you advice. I don't think, other than like anecdotal life.
I think you have a really great. I think you have educated yourself well.
Yeah, but not well enough that I'm comfortable being like a lot of the people who are out on YouTube, who are like beauticians trying to tell you how to fix yourself.
Totally, right? Because we see attractive people more in a better light.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Right? So just kind of thinking about some of those things. Where do we go? Who do we go to when we're needing help? Feel free to reach out to us whenever you are wondering. But don't don't hesitate to question the help that you're receiving too, right? Like, is this actually what I need? So a perfect example of that is like when somebody goes for an antidepressant and they think that their depression should be gone. No, man. So much. Like, we know that anxiety and depression respond really well to medications and cognitive work.
Yeah.
And therapeutic work. We get way better outcomes than just pharmaceuticals alone, right?
Big time.
Yeah. So recognizing that like a pill might help, but you still need to do the other thing. So the Tylenol might help my headache, but if I still have muscle tension, it would be super helpful to get that worked on.
Exactly. Or like stop drinking coffee and switch to water.
Fuck you.
Right?
Just kidding. You know what's crazy though? Like that. Now that you're on that topic,
what?
I stopped drinking coffee when I was pregnant and breastfeeding, and then I started drinking matcha after that.
Oh yeah.
A couple years ago, I started drinking coffee again because I craved the taste of it, and I felt way better on matcha. And I know I did. And every day I wake up, I'm like, I need to make the fucking matcha, but I make the coffee because I miss the taste. Isn't that weird?
That's why I have my whiskey. I like the taste of it.
Fuck. And I know the matcha is better for me.
Oh, for sure.
You guys make me have the matcha.
No, just
I'm lacking discipline in that area.
Just drink the coffee.
I know.
You gotta have. Everyone needs a vice or two.
But matcha is a better caffeine. It's a longer, more sustained. It peaks less. It's better for the blood sugars. Like, it's different. And there's a lot of mold in coffee, apparently.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, Dave Asprey. He's the biohacker of the world. I follow him, and that guy has like reduced his age a lot. I mean, I still get ID'd. I don't need to reduce my physical age. Just kidding. No, but yeah, his physical body, like,
I'm sure, yeah,
tests like 22 years younger.
Isn't that crazy? You can do that with like your fitness level too, like these endurance guys, like Control
and his is
whatnot.
all diet based, and he has like minimal body fat. Like, it's very interesting. He's like the grass-fed beef guy, like the bulletproof coffee guy. Yeah. Anyways, we digress. We've talked about Sean Connery. We've talked about lots of different things here.
Lots of things. And we've got only an episode or two left.
Yeah.
Starting next week.
I'm sorry.
But we'll be back.
We should talk about abandonment wounds. Oh, maybe when we talk about that.
The topic.
Our guest.
Yes.
We have a guest appearance coming
for the
up.
last couple episodes.
And what's super exciting is we don't know this person. They found us.
Which is cool.
Online. And she's kind of a big deal. And we were like, what? You found our podcast?
You want to talk to us?
Damn right.
This should be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be really good.
I'm curious.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Until then, though,
this is your place to go for everything. We are the experts on your entire life.
We'll fix you, whether you want to be fixed or not, motherfuckers. Until then, I'm Jason.
I'm Jolene.
Talk soon.